For those of you who don't know this, when you begin your travels in the world of the conspiracist, when you are a part of the conspiratorium, when you fully acknowledge that, yes, you are a conspiracy theorist, one of those people, remember, embrace it. Don't fight it. Don't argue with people. Say, sure, whatever you want. One of the things that you will remember, one of the things which is very critical, very important for you to remember is that you will start off and you'll be given the introductory kind of like 101. And we're going to call it Conspiracy Theory 101 because it's the wrong term, but everybody knows what it means. And you're going to start off just like when you're in law school. Real property 1, contracts 1, torts 1, civil procedure 1. It's only just 1. The basics. You start off with the basics. You wonder what is this? So invariably, when you came along into this, somebody either guided you, or you read something, or you heard something, because you went from the Normieville into the red pilled area. And I'm going to use every cliche there is. And my introduction, my first awareness when they turned the lights on was 9/11. And then I learned things that it changed the way I thought. And one of the things that everybody must learn is MKUltra. It's the, as you would say, I don't use this word, but I will say this for you, the coolest thing around. It's so profoundly wonderful. It is the best iteration of thought and fancy. It's like better than UFOs, it's just so good. Mind control, menticide. And when you first tell somebody this, they say, that's the craziest thing in the world. Is it really? I don't think so. We're going to be talking about that, especially in view of this terrible case of this lunatic who set himself on fire, who engaged in self-immolation, as it is referred to, or as one CNN commentator called him, emblazoned. He was emblazoned, which I shan't forget. But first, get ready. Get something cold or hot or alcoholic, something to nibble on. We have a show for you tonight. You're going to love it. And I'm going to give you a lot of background, which will make you smarter, wiser, and a little bit more hip and adept when it comes to this particular way of living. All right? So please make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you hit that little bell to be notified of live streams and new videos. Very, very important. Very, very critical. And my friends, I want to tell you a couple of things too, right off the bat, from one of our great sponsors. Of course, you know them, you love them, our friends from My Patriot Supply. But here's something that you don't know. If you go to preparewithlionel.com, yes, you can save $50 on a 4-week emergency kit, and that's wonderful. But if you go to the actual site itself, go to where this is. Go to the Prepare with Lionel site, and what you do is you will get, of course, this incredibly fascinating $50 off. But when you go down a little bit lower, you'll say Grid Doctor 300 solar generator system. The performance of gas now from the sun. Grid Doctor 300. This is the most. This lasts longer and runs better than generators. I love this stuff. I love the fact that so many people spend so much time, separate and distinct from, of course, the food. And the food, it goes without saying. I mean, my God, it's obvious. I keep telling people all the time, try doing this. Try putting this together by yourself. 2,000 calories a day, 16 varieties of food with a 25-year shelf life. These folks spend their entire life thinking about stuff you don't want to. nor should you have to. So that's it. My Patriot Supply. Go to preparewithlionel.com. Use this right now, preparewithlionel.com, and get $50 on a 4-week emergency food kit. And you will thank me. Now, let's go back to the phones, right? Back to the phones, back to the fun, back to the excitement. I used to say that all the time when I was doing that radio. When radio was fun, when it was fun, when it was exciting, when it was dangerous. And now it's... My friends, MKUltra, Mind Control Ultra. The story is there. We know through declassification, we know it occurred. We know it occurred. We're not making this up. Whether it's going on now, I don't know. Please listen to this wonderful interview with Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan. Oh, it's wonderful. Tucker sandbags a little bit. Tucker is a little bit of a gatekeeper. A little bit. He's not ready to go completely out there yet. His version of UAPs and UFOs and EBEs, a little bit. It's spiritual. There's no evidence of it. Okay, Tuck. All right. Don't know who got to you, my friend, but hey, you've come a long way, baby, to get where you're going today. You've got your own cigarette now, baby. Okay. Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays, Freud's nephew, came up with the notion of women smoking as empowerment, victory torches or something like that. Okay. MKUltra. Got a video coming up later on this eve. Those of you who are members get to see it first. But it's a fascinating story. First and foremost, we must begin a couple of names. First, remember this name. Remember this name. This is the big daddy of big daddies. Remember the name Sidney Gottlieb. Oh my God. This was, they call him the CIA's poisoner in chief. Sidney Gottlieb, oh my God, this was this biochemist in the 50s as part of MKUltra. He had agents search the world for natural poisons, and he loved new chemicals. Oh, the CIA was really good. So Sidney Gottlieb, that's one of the names you're going to have to remember. Make a note of this. Also put down the number of the name, of course, Alan Dulles, who was a CIA, of course. But remember these names too, Harry Williams and Carl Pfeiffer. These were two of the doctors, part of the MKUltra, specifically dealing with LSD. Whitey Bulger was part of the experiment. Ted Kaczynski, we hear. But a little bit on the background. John Foster Dulles and his brother Alan Dulles were two of the most important people in our history. They do not get enough credit as having shaped more policies, wars, covert activities. They ran the show. If there's one person, dear friend, most probably, most literally, most actually responsible for the death of John Kennedy, it is Alan Dulles. Without a doubt. Now, of course, we don't have, we don't have fingerprints. We don't have, but go with that one. Suffice it to say, he is it. Now, in 1953, April of 1953, Alan Dulles, who was the newly appointed director of CIA and the first civilian, he was the first civilian. Remember Vandivar and all the others? I forget the names of the generals or whatever, but he was the first civilian, 1953. And he was delivering a speech to a bunch of Princetonian alumni types. And as he was speaking, there were tremendous tensions and worries that were running high all over the world. The Korean War was coming to an end. And earlier that week, it was announced that the Times, New York Times, had published this story, this very shocking story about asserting the number of American POWs who were coming back had been completely converted and changed and altered by communist brainwashers, or the best term is menticide. Menticide is really what we're talking about. So he was very concerned about this. Very, very concerned. Some GIs were admitting and confessing to war crimes. They were saying things like they were carrying out germ warfare against the communists. Never happened. The U.S. categorically denied it, of course, but others were brainwashed. Some refused to even return to the U.S. They said, forget it, we're staying here. And if that wasn't bad enough news, the U.S. was, this is interesting, within weeks of, remember, Operation Ajax with Kermit Roosevelt and the overthrow of Mossadegh. Okay? So Dulles, this is this guy. He was part of Sullivan and Cromwell, big Wall Street law firm. They were from a time, he was a degenerate, a sexual rake-a-roo, a concupiscent, he was a three-peckered goat. John Foster, his brother, different story. So he was giving this speech, and he was trying to define what would be the priorities of the CIA. He was imaginative. He just wasn't. These other guys were, military. This was pretty much an extension of the military. Intel was different. He really was the godfather. Remember, during World War II, Blackjack Donovan, remember the ideas of the OSS and spies and, behind the scenes. And it was, remember the time they were going to the various Ivy Leagues. Harvard was pretty much pulled the talent from State Department. Yale pretty much did the work for Intel. That's where they got most of these. And he said that this was a quote he said. He said, in the past few years, we have become accustomed to hearing much about the battle for men's minds, the war of ideologies. I wonder, however, he says, whether we clearly perceive the magnitude of the problem, whether we realize how sinister the battle for men's minds has become in Soviet hands. We might call it, in its new form, this is what he called it, brain warfare. Not philosophical, intellectual ideologies, but actual brain, neurological, psychiatric. So Dulles proceeded then to talk about the Russians. And there's no way anybody today, you might catch a little bit of it, to explain or to understand or to grasp the Russophobic lunacy that occurred at the time. He just talked about Soviet brain perversion, and he just went on this. He also talked about how American POWs. Remember the Pueblo. Remember Lloyd Booker, 73 went sailor from the San Francisco Bay. Blues Image, written by Tampeño Mike Pinera from West Tampa. Ride, Captain, Ride. Now, what happened was, he said, and this is important. One of the things which was so interesting, now follow this one too. This is a very, very interesting story. One of the reasons why he was so interested in this was that he wanted to show people that the reason why these Americans gave in or found the communist ways attractive, or the reason why other folks, why Russians themselves and others found communism attractive and viable and legitimate and all this stuff. The reason why wasn't because of the sapience or the sagacity of the ideology. Oh, no. It was because of the mind control, this brain warfare, this menticide, the brainwashing. If he can show that, he can say, there's no, because they were worried that he was telling all the lefties here, nobody's really behind, nobody's truly a communist. They're the victims of brainwashing. It's very interesting. So he was fascinated by this. He kept talking about brain warfare. And there was this fear of it, of not being behind. The public was fascinated by it, by what he said, the stories of brainwashed soldiers returning from China and Korea and the Soviet Union. Newspaper headlines. One of them said, "New evils seen in brainwashing versus Western psychiatry." These incredible accounts, sensationalistic ideas. And the paranoia was also going into the world of media and the like, because you had the Manchurian Candidates, the Naked Lunch, and playing on themes of lunacy and conspiracies and whatever. And the idea, again, of brainwashing provided people like Dulles and others with this most compelling, most fascinating, kind of a soothing, almost a comforting, again, explanation for why communism was rising swiftly through this area. Why was there such an incredible trajectory of people who were acolytes of this? Why were the enemy combatants? Why? Because they were brainwashed. It wasn't because communism made any sense. So, 3 days after the speech regarding this, Dulles approved the beginning of MKUltra. Where were you the first time you heard this? You always knew there was something. And recently there was this talk of whether this self-immolation victim was somehow the victim, or he himself was the victim of some kind of MKUltra. I don't know why they just do. They just picked it out of nowhere. But okay, now is as good a time as any to talk about it. Or as the CNN reporter said, he was emblazoned. I love that. Anyway, they were talking about the covert use of not only psychological, but it was chemical and biological and different ways. So what they did was they wanted to learn about mind control, and they didn't know how to do it. We don't know if we snatched any of the mind controllers that the Soviets had, but at the time, but they wanted to see if they could use, for example, would it be electroshock therapy, ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, hypnosis, using polygraphs and biometrics to find out, radiation, drugs, toxins, chemicals, psychotropics, psych meds, and the like, hallucinogenics. They had subjects some of them who would volunteer, some who volunteered under coercion, some who absolutely no idea what they're doing. They went to state schools for developmentally delayed boys and American soldiers and sexual psychopaths. Oh, I remember this one. We had a thing in Florida called the MDSO, mentally deranged sexual offenders, MDSO program, where they would try to figure out why was it that these people found themselves attracted to certain forms of sexual ideation and paraphilia that we thought were disgusting. By the way, Thomas Pilgreen, new member. Welcome, Tommy. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Appreciate it immensely. I really do. I certainly do. So there was this, they were actually using things like plethysmographs. They would take body parts, they would wrap it with a design to determine whether you were turgid or not. So, in any event, make a long story short. So, Whitey Bulger, I think I told you this. He was involved. Whitey wrote about it, said it really freaked them out, and others as well. They were using LSD for the most part. And they really, really liked this. In the late 40s, the CIA kept hearing about reports of the Soviets using this thing, LSD. Remember Hoffman and the argot, alkaloids or whatever it was. Ergot, rather. And the Soviets apparently were attempting to purchase as much the world's supply of the drugs. They couldn't synthesize it apparently that easily. There was one CIA officer who said the agency was actually and literally and truly terrified of this LSD program because we didn't know anything about it. And what if they could somehow poison our water? What if, they were really interested. Well, with the advent of MKUltra, the interest in LSD shifted from a kind of a defensive one to offensive. See, the spooks found that LSD could be potentially useful in gaining control of bodies, whether they were willing or not. And it envisioned using all kinds of forms of LSD, ranging from removing people from Europe, enabling people from assassination, driving people crazy. I like this one. In 1953, a group of 10 scientists met at a cabin located deep in the forests of Maryland. After extended discussions, participants in this particular group agreed to truly understand the value of the drug. An unwitting experiment would be desirable. You had to have almost a control group. And it needed this. You've got to do this. They were very, very, very concerned about this. Even if they believed that these programs and these particular plans were essential to national security, they had to be very tight-lipped about it, very, very careful. One of my favorites is a story you probably didn't hear about this. Maybe you did. I didn't, but it's called Operation Midnight Climax. Did you hear about this, baby? Oh, this was a good one. This was great. Operation Midnight Climax. I was reading about this. In 1955, in San Francisco, at a particular address, 225 Chestnut Street, the CIA was really focused on this one particular area. So they took this kind of a bedroom, and a fellow named George White was involved in not only the construction of the room, but in decorating it. And he was once, I think, with the Federal Bureau of Narcotics as precursor to the DEA. And when the CIA moved into drug experiments, well, he's the guy. So he hung up pictures of this. He had this thing that looks like a real campy bordello from like France. Pictures of, I swear to God, can dancers, flowers, and thick red kind of, drapes and silk mats and a bunch of Toulouse-Lautrec posters. And I mean, this guy was like, okay. So he also had a two-way mirror, and he had the CIA bug it for sound and the like. So he went out and he also enlisted the help of prostitutes, and he would get a bunch of prostitutes to come in and to service men and the like. They made a deal with them that in the event they would be arrested or something, they would be, given immunity or helped or something like that. But they would get people in, and they did two things. Number one, they really experimented with honeypot stuff to find out what could they learn about state secrets by just regular. I mean, why they had to do an experiment on this, I have no idea. I think you can imagine. But pillow talk and that sort of stuff. But also, what happens if you then incorporate that sexual activity with MKUltra as well, LSD? And he was merely watching this, as if with a martini in his hand, watching people, stooping like weasels. And he's watching this and he's taking notes. And they basically said, well, I think it was pretty much, it was a gimme. 1977, Ted Kennedy put an end to this right around the time of the Church Commission. The Secretary, Inspector General closed it down. MKUltra. So they said. Do you think it's over? Well, you don't know. Do you think it's over? How would this be over? When has the CIA ever put on the brakes for anything? LSD is like, it's too brutal. Unless you want to just make somebody nuts. That's why I want to tell people this. And I love all of these wonderful talks about psychedelics. And I love what Joe Rogan does about ayahuasca and hiawatha, whatever, DMT and all this other kind of jazz and licking frogs. And that may sound groovy, but be very, 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 very careful. It's not for everybody. It's very scary stuff, my friends. But do you think for a moment it's possibly over? Do you think for a moment that the CIA, and by the way, I don't even believe in the CIA. I believe there are organizations. When I say I believe, I wouldn't be surprised if there are organizations to say we don't have names. We might be military intel. There's so many. We only know the big names. NSA. You notice how nobody mentions the NSA anymore? Never. Remember NSA? It was all about the NSA. NSA right over the time of Snowden and NSA. Now nobody talks about the NSA at all. Nobody cares about them at all. Nothing. No interest. What happened? So I don't know if I wouldn't be surprised if there were agencies or groups that you could say, well, who'd you work for? I don't know. Could it be the recon? Look at the names of some of these places. Military intelligence. You might be shared from. Let's pull you from Navy intel. You go over here and you go over there. By the way, did a wonderful video. And by the way, God bless Tucker and Rogan. I did kind of a critique today of one of Tucker's versions of Watergate. And I appreciate what he's done. I think sometimes he extrapolates a little bit too much. If you want to watch that, please do. You get an idea for what I think about that. Because I tend to be very, I'm going to say it, a little more analytical, because I don't know things. I can suspect things. I can have a hunch. But as I've told you repeatedly, there is no substitute for proof. Stand by for 1 second, because I'm going to pick up the really good stuff. This is what you really want to know. What do you think they're doing now? And are we seeing any examples of it now? Well, before we do, think about this very carefully. We have a wonderful sponsor of ours. We know him, we love him. He's been with us since the beginning. His name is Mike Lindell. And he's a wonderful group of people, a wonderful thing called, of course, MyPillow. The MyPillow.com, folks. If you use promo code Lionel, and I want you to listen very carefully to this incredibly thoughtful delivery. Well, it's time yet again to hail and salute our great friends at MyPillow.com. And if you use promo code Lionel, you get a free gift. No purchase necessary. I know, a free gift. Gifts are free. Okay, it's a tautology, so sue me. But listen to me and listen carefully. What are we talking about here? Down comforters, flannel sheets, Giza Dream bed sheets, MyPillow 2.0 body pillows, waffle blankets, couch and recliner pillows, sheets, slippers, percales. I'm not even done yet. Towels, quilts, bedspreads, mattresses, mattress covers, mattress toppers, linens, kitchen towels, bathrobes, pet blankets, bolster pillows, name it. Items to help you luxuriate and relax. And their monster sellers, slippers, my slippers, slip-ons, moccasins. Think about it. What do they do at MyPillow? What's their main goal? To make things real soft, plush, real comfy, or comfy as I say it. How perfect. So here's the link right now. Go to mypillow.com/Lionel. mypillow.com, promo code Lionel or /Lionel, or call 800-645-4965. 800-645-4965. And watch how fast our good friend Mike Lindell answers the phone. MyPillow.com, promo code Lionel, simply and absolutely the best. Indeed, my friend, our good friend JTE0707 says they look at us as rats sitting back and conspiring their next move. They only tell us 50 years later. They also use remotes to control dogs. Oh, yes. And thank you, Jay. And remember, if you can think it, somebody else has thought it too. Now, let me explain something to you. What is it that people want? Let me tell you what I would not be surprised of. Let's start with Epstein. I would not be surprised if Epstein was not something that is the most important there is. I would not be surprised if Epstein was not in, MKUltra, but a honeypot of the same order. Les Wexner, completely forgotten. Who was his benefactor? Epstein, the dupe, the patsy, the genius, the anchor, set him up. Ehud Barak. Alan Dershowitz was his lawyer. I believe, as you do as well, that is Israeli military, and don't let anybody fool you, their intel is superb. I do not be surprised if you had everybody involved putting up together one of the biggest extortion, blackmail, honeypot rings or installations or programs in the history of humankind, up to and including sharing it with certain people. Okay, we'll let you do it here in New York, but we're going to share. Okay, fair enough. All of those tapes and videos and thumb drives and all of them are gone. All of them. Look at this. Sparky says, where does your man, Ted Kaczynski fit into this? Well, as you know, Ted was a part of this. He went completely a lunatic, but he was a little bit before, a little bit off before. But Ted Kaczynski, he was, let me see, before he was a Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski was a mind control test subject. And it says it right now. He entered Harvard as a 16-year-old on a scholarship after skipping the 6th and 11th grades. He was subjected to an experiment by Harvard psychologist Henry Murray that was backed by the CIA. Murray's study was reportedly to be a part of a CIA program codenamed MKUltra. It's all there. You know what's so interesting about this, Sparky? As you know this, I know this, we all know this. But the number of people who've never heard of this, who think, oh, that's just crazy, missed the point. Let me also tell you what I would not be surprised of. The other day, people were saying, I noticed Marjorie Taylor Greene, others were saying, what's with Mike Johnson? See this spending package for Ukraine is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Horrible. And they're wondering, Mike, what happened to you? Mike, what's going on here? Do you know what I could do if I had a dossier? If I found out that person over there had a particular penchant or predilection for children. I'm not saying Mike Johnson does, but let's just take this to this extreme. Politician X. Set him up. Put him together with some CSAM, child sexual abuse material, aka kiddie porn. Have him involved with a child with some very dark forces rather. And what do we do? What do we do when that child is of no use anymore? You know. Remember 1974, Godfather 2. Senator Geary. Remember him? G.D. Spradlin, or whatever his name was. He was a great actor. Actually was in the oil business before he became an actor. And the scene was he was at a brothel, I think in Nevada. And there was a prostitute there that he would engage in. And it appears from this one door, Al Neary was there, Al Neary, who was Michael's bodyguard. It was his Luca Brasi. Never really had Al Neary's character in the book so much better. But anyway, so is Luca Brasi. Oh, if you haven't read The Godfather, it is. You've missed one of the famous. Did Ted warn of technology and computers? I believe so. I did not read his. Thank you, by the way, JT. I did not read his screed, but that's what I'm led to believe. That's what I'm led to believe. He did that. Now, interesting. when we look at the stories of what's happening here, when we look at how things work, you always look to art to figure where things are going, and you always look to what's happening. And if somebody thought of this in 1953, they're thinking about it now. Now, for this troubled soul who came from, I think, St. Augustine, Florida to New York, set himself afire. I don't know what the purpose of that was. I don't know. There's pictures of him with Bill Clinton. He was a Bernie bro. He was, you know what I mean? It's hard to say because people always like to take his political ideology and associate it with his criminal activity and say, see what this does? Do you see what these crazy people think? They love to do that. I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever or matters in the least what his political ideology was. It doesn't really matter. It does not matter. And the reason why is because when somebody decides to set themselves on fire, for the most part, I do not say it is necessarily per se insanity. Let me say this again. When Bushnell, or whatever his name was, the Air Force officer, committed suicide, he was, as you know, it was a very sad case, but they immediately said, oh, he's crazy. And I don't think he's necessarily crazy. I don't think he was necessarily crazy. I don't think people are necessarily crazy because of the fact that he did this. Now, this bothers some people because they think, well, suicide is per se crazy, and I don't think it is. It could be, it could be, but if anything, it's more associated with depression than with insanity. Because one of the things that people kind of have to realize and grasp is the notion that, people later on, as you know, when they're in the throes of some fugue, some crazed lunatic moment, they're not depressed to end your life, Tibet is, in many cultures, it's been associated with bravery and so, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. We love to immediately say that somebody is crazy for that. It could also be delusional. He could have been somebody who wanted some kind of an attack, or attention or what have you. I don't know. I still don't think we should mention his name. I don't think we should show pictures of who he is. I don't think we should show and release his manifesto and the like. I don't believe so. When did you first hear of MKUltra? Oh, and by the way, is there anyone here, if you are brave enough to say this, is there anyone here who never thought or heard of it until I mention it right now? Anybody who never heard of it? Anybody? Do you think so? Do you think, is there anyone here who for the first time never, ever, ever heard of Mind Control Ultra or MKUltra? Because I would venture to say most people who are not involved in this have absolutely no interest in this whatsoever. You understand this? Someone writes the connection between MKUltra, Laurel Canyon, the war. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of this. Remember, it goes back to we always say Tavistock, but depending upon whom you believe, there is a connection that people saw as to working with young people. It has been posited for years and thought about for years that the Ford Foundation or the Road, whoever it was, they were responsible for, was it Ford Foundation or was it the Rockefeller, for creating the women's movement, to have them destroy Bernays and others, to have them destroy the family and the like. John McGuire couldn't get hired, says early 90s, Art Bell at first thought he was talking about a cigarette brand. MKUltra. Very funny. Very funny. There was, of course, when you tell people Operation, somebody mentioned Mockingbird. Absolutely. Ask of Phil Graham. And they remember this, it was a different time then. It was a different time, a different mindset. We didn't have this notion of the CIA, Intel. It was, you're helping your country. You know, these were scary times. We just came out of World War II. America was patriotic. If it helps to get those Ruskies, well, by God, we thought differently. It was a different mindset. I can't believe sometimes how many people don't. There was a very troubling Stephanie. Oh, you'll love this one. You'll love this one. There was a woman, congressperson, who was read her script, and she was interrogating the Columbia president. She says, "Isn't it true? Isn't it true that there's not a? No, isn't it true that there's why did I say this? Oh, do you believe that from the river to the sea, and people who are in support of the intifada are anti-Semitic? Not the intifada, the infitada. Sounds like a tostada, like an infitada. Can you believe that? Between emblazoned and this, she had no idea what the hell she was talking about. They handed her the script. Just read the script, okay? But isn't this the First Amendment? Shut up. Okay, fine. We're losing our mind with that one. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. But here is the story. Listen to me very carefully. Do you know what the difference is? The difference between Dulles then and the CIA now? What's the difference? I'll tell you. Dulles focused his attention at the enemy. CIA intel today focuses on you. You're the enemy. You're the enemy. We don't really have any enemies. Nobody's going to be attacking us. I mean, yeah, maybe somewhere. You're the enemy. Because the shadow government, the globalist cabal, has switched its focus from Ruskies and Chinese, Red China and all those phrases, and now those really don't pose much of a problem. Those are money making. The Russians are the foil that produce the raison d'etre of NATO. Remember, no Russia, no NATO. If there's no Russia, there's no need for NATO. You know that, right? NATO is a money-making scam of the first order. Just draws money. Do you know the night of the, whatever it was, when Iran decided to, how do I say this? When Iran sent the, how do I say this? When the Iran sent the drones and all this over. Do you remember that? This was important? That when he sent the drones and all this stuff over, it was very interesting. They had, how do I say this? It cost, very interesting. It cost Israel, according to the numbers I read, to unleash its Iron Dome and other particular counter offensive, about up to $4 billion for one salvo, one sortie. The defense, buy your Raytheon stock or whoever. This is fantastic. Of course, we don't have the money for our, protection and the like. So, in any event, let me say this again. The enemy today is you. You're the enemy. Shelby Eaton Lipschitz says, should we consider the unholy alliance between the junk food industry, the fast food industry, and the government that allows our kids to consume that soul and brain rotting crapola as a new MKUltra? That is, thank you, Shelby. That is a most fascinating case. I don't know if that's so much as mind control or the systematic destruction of us. I promise you something, and I invite you to do this. If you could go, and I don't know, many people swear they do this, but if you ate right and ate as many things as possible that did not come in a box, I would say to a can to an extent, because sometimes beans come in a can and they're just beans and nothing wrong with it. But if ever you could go through a period of time where you ate well and really felt well, you do not know what it will do for your overall mentality. Consequently, when you're eating poorly, what it does to your disposition. Sparky says, could Micah Johnson be so naive that he actually believed the intel briefing? Perhaps he's led a compartmentalized life. Or did they find out about the underage goat across state lines? You know, it's funny you say that, Sparky. I will tell you something, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way. Not you, but people in general. I have never not been amazed by how people absolutely, positively believe things that are just, I don't want to go into detail because I insult people, but when it comes to religion, superstition, politics, belief, I cannot believe what people know and what people don't know. And I know that, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, Sparky, you were in the military on our side. Groupthink is a very scary thing. When you are there, when you're sitting there and you're saying you are the Speaker of the House, you're third in line, you're saying to yourself, what am I here for? I'm here for me. Don't let anybody, I don't care, from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Boebert, especially to Matt Gaetz, to Nancy Pelosi, to Chuck Schumer, you name it. The person they are after is themselves. They want their own power, their own money, their own fame, their own fortune. Now, the way they do it is by theoretically helping the group of people they have sworn to maintain. But the idea of I'm going to go in and help my country, no, bullshit. Absolutely not. So Mike Johnson will say, first of all, you don't understand what I know. You don't understand what I know. And politics is a very important business. And I think it is in everybody's best interest, especially when you are done. Do you know, say, Mike, I don't know what the problem, when you're going to be so wealthy if you play it right. Whether it's with board, you can be on boards, we'll put things in private trust. There's a way, there must be a division of how do you park money? How do I join boards of directors later for, I don't know, but Mike, play it right. If I went to Congress, look at Ron Paul. Ron Paul probably was maybe the last, would you agree? Maybe the last of the honest politicians. Not perfect. Do you think Ron Paul, I think he was the last of one of the last, maybe in my lifetime, the only Trump's notwithstanding. But do you think so? I think Ron Paul probably was the only guy, maybe around. Nick met Ron Paul. You know that Ron Paul ate like one meal a day. He was always into autophagy, hormesis. That's another story too. People eat too much. That's another story. But I think he might be the only one. I think he's the only one in my lifetime. And look where he is now. Nowhere. Bernie Sanders, biggest sellout in the world. They told him that's enough. He got his money. He figured, the hell with it. I'll do the best I can. Did you hear this story? It's interesting. Judge Napolitano talks about it with Jeffrey Sachs, I think. Jeremy, I forget his name. Anyway, and he said that and Bobby Kennedy Jr. cited this. He said, Mr. President, you must release the information. This is Napolitano. You must release the information regarding the Kennedy assassination. And Trump supposedly said, as people say, if you knew what I knew, you'd never let that go. You're never going to find out what actually happened. Nobody wants to know. There's a compartmentalized sense of secrecy in the government that always says, we don't want you to know. Why is that? Simple. Once you learn something, you're going to want to learn something else. The answer is do not tell them anything. Even if it's not even important, don't tell them anything. We want you to be over there, to remain in the pen, in the corral, in the cage of ignorance. We don't want you to know anything. And we want you to get used to not knowing anything. And we're not going to tell you anything. I promise you, if you're sitting around and you're in Washington, you're gonna rub shoulders with more people who know more things and know. Not only that, there's no file that sits there and say, okay, here's the Kennedy file. Who were the shooters? One of the things which everybody wants to understand and must understand is the notion of compartmentalized information. You know, at the time of the Manhattan Project, there were, 107,000 people. It never got out. And nobody knew anything. You could grab 100 of them and say, what are you working on? I said, I don't know. Do you know that Google people work together? But at Apple, you may never know what somebody else is doing. You're in the glass department. You're putting together the phone. You're making the phone. You're in the beveled case. You're in the electronics. You're in the iOS department. You're in the colors or the camera. You're working on the camera. You're working on this. You don't meet anybody. They used to strip. They said they used to strip people. Strip them. Well, or to make sure you're not taking this thing out. Because when that iPhone went out, that was top secret like you cannot believe. They had security like you cannot believe. But each of them was compartmentalized. And the reason why the people who wanted to see the new Apple phone more than anybody else were people who worked for Apple. Because they didn't know. They didn't know. To keep secrets, it's very simple. It's been said a million times. Carlos Marcello had a thing in his office that said 3 people can keep a secret if 2 are dead. You compartmentalize the information. You compartmentalize. Another thing too is I can tell you the truth and you won't believe it. If I told you the truth, does everybody have something in your life? Do you have a story that you never would tell anybody in a book because nobody would ever believe it? Do you? I do. I have things that I've done, you wouldn't believe it. So I don't even tell anybody. I wouldn't tell anybody because, first of all, I don't want to tell anybody, but you wouldn't believe it. It sounds like I'm making it up and it sounds like I'm crazy. So I don't talk about it. I just let it go. Not a lot, but more than you would imagine. I think everybody's like that. We have these stories. It's like, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. There were some, but I know it. It's in my memory. And I can smile and look back and say, that was something. And that's it. So the idea is that once we get and see, one of the things that you must know from this, when all is said and done, from our meetings and our little soirees like this, our little information fetes, and I want you to know how to think, not to know certain things, but understand how to think. Our Valera, ladies and gentlemen, says, thank you very much. Did you see the story in the New York Post the other day? A woman took her dead uncle, yes, posed in a wheelchair in the bank to co-sign for a loan with his house as collateral. The story is a description of Biden's relation to the deep state in a nutshell. Yes, this was the woman, by the way, and thank you, by the way, very much for your kindness. This is the woman in Brazil who took a one. And by the way, same thing happened here in New York. There's a guy in a wheelchair. They didn't, stick the pen in his hand. But it was funny when I was reading it on Twitter. They had the actual picture of the guy's head. I mean, it was so terrible. It wasn't Weekend at Bernie's. It was beyond that. But the same thing happened here on 9th Avenue. Somebody brought this guy in a wheelchair. And he's dead. But he was just there just to say, here he is. It's demented. Sparky says, fun fact, in high school, Ron Paul was a Pennsylvania 220-yard dash state champion. I did not know that. What Ron Paul did was, Ron Paul made it very cool. And thank you, Sparky. Made it very cool. See, I want people to understand, first and foremost, I'm going to start with the idea. The idea of the government, they are not your friend. Let me just tell you this. You know how they say, your parent's not your friend. That's your dad. Okay, that's a little different. They are not here to help you. They hate you. The idea of Abraham Lincoln and going to Washington and helping people is bullshit. It doesn't exist. It might have existed then. And these Doris Kearns Goodwin and David McCullough and, John Adams. Would you stop it? No. You know who the people are? And by the way, everybody deep down inside, remember something. Nobody works for free. Let me ask you something. If you had to listen, how do I say this? I would like to do something, to try something, just for the hell of it. I would, and I know I tell people this, I would vote for an Alex Jones over anybody. Over Tucker, over anybody. Because he started off in the resistance. Now remember, everybody wants to make money. Everybody. Nobody works for free. So just because, do not ever think it's there is truth should be rewarded handsomely. The richest person in the world is the person who does the most good. The people who are going to make the most difference, the people that are going to make the most difference are people like you. Not Mike Johnson. The people who are going to, if we could change people, if we could say, understand something. Do you see this, folks? Do you see class? See, I love to take these. If you ever go to Washington, it's wonderful. I love to have a little class. Where you walk around, there's a person, he has a flag. You see him in New York a lot. These tourists, this guy has a flag. He's in the front and they're going to, follow me. I love to say, see this right here, folks? Yeah, this is all bullshit. This is bullshit. This is a Potemkin village. This is a Hollywood. This is a Hollywood scene. The level of corruption is so entrenched. Look around you. Nobody here gives a damn about you. Nobody. This is the most corrupt system of people who just are there for their own. This may sound crazy, but Candace Owens, by the way, have you noticed, is she missing? I haven't noticed it, but people, they're just gone. All of a sudden, boop. I call it the Kate Middleton effect. They're just gone. The people that you have to understand is that these people are just, they do nothing for you. They don't care about you. The Constitution means nothing. Maybe, I think you're going to laugh at this. You're going to laugh at this. But the Supreme Court, at least ostensibly, is using the Constitution as a basis for it. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. I could probably sit down and agree more with Sotomayor, Kagan, or KBJ or KJ Brown, Katanji. I could probably get along with them more because at least I have a basis. At least I could say, okay, here's what I think the story is, and we can argue about whether the Second Amendment is, but that's about it. Legislature, forget it. Absolutely, you can take them all. They are the most vile people. They have no interest whatsoever in you and me. None. Mr. Mike says, a plaque on Ron Paul's desk says, don't steal, government hates competition. Absolutely. He was the first person, Mike, and thank you, by the way. He's the first person who made people ask about the Federal Reserve. I ask people this a lot. And I ask people, and I want you to do this too. It's an old trick of mine. It's one of my favorites. What you do you have a friend of yours who's a real pain in the ass? Real know-it-all. One of these real know-it-all types. You have no idea how I hate know-it-alls. I love to start off every day with this prayer. You don't know anything. And today, when you go to bed, you'll know less of nothing than you do now. You'll know less of nothing. But I love this one. Let's say, for example, it's Inman. Even though, but let's just say, Wes, let's say we're sitting around a table. Wes, you're a pretty sharp guy. And I know if anybody would know this, you would, because I know you're a news junkie. This is exactly the way I set them up. I know, Wes, you're a news junkie. If anybody would know this, it would be you, because you just, I know you read, but you just know. I used to say read the newspapers, but you don't anymore. But here's a question. What exactly is the Federal Reserve? And then pause and wait. And watch what they say. They have no idea of what it means. None. They have no idea. What did we do before the Federal Reserve? It's a central bank, right? Is it privately held? Sparky says Bernie Sanders was a New York City mile champ. He ran a 4:36 mile with a lucky strike hanging from his mouth. He could have run faster, but it was considered impolite to get way ahead. Kidding about the smoke. I like him a lot. I've always liked him. And I like the way Jon Stewart was legit. I think Jon Stewart's trying to come back. I think he's trying to come back. I think he's trying to come back from whatever it is. But the people who don't know anything are the most important. So you have to understand the idea of I don't know anything. And I start off with the premise of this. This is my religion. This is my religion. First and foremost, I'm in the trenches. I'm on you. It's me and you. I'm not ahead of you. I'm honored to be speaking to you, but it's you. We are on. I am a dime a dozen, and you can take Rogan and me. Not that I'm including myself, but anybody who's on to and throw them. We don't amount to a hill or shit. Doesn't matter one way or the other. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. But what we do is simply this. My goal is to make you say, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. And my rules are very, very simple. Let me give you an idea of something. I'm working on this thing. I'm giving you a little heads up here. This is something and I'm going to give it to you. These are called Lionel's truths or truths. First rule is respect yourself or no one else will. I know this sounds crazy, but I know some people who really do not. I'm not saying be an egomaniac, but love yourself. Respect yourself. Start with who you are. There's no way I'm going to care about you if you don't care about yourself. Number 2, never lose the child in you. Just add on the adult, but not too much. Watch kids play. Watch the way they learn. They're not embarrassed. They don't know hate. They are the perfect human being. That's why when somebody wants to hurt a kid, I want to disembowel them in public to teach people a lesson. Next, always try to learn something you absolutely know nothing about, and that seems above your pay grade. Learn something that I'm going to learn Esperanto. Always learn. Use this thing where I want to do something because of the challenge. Next, avoid the cool kids. Oh, here. Never, ever go with the crowd. Next, if everybody agrees with you, something's very wrong. Next, don't worry. Your fear be. Well, I didn't write this one. Don't worry, you fear believe doesn't have a label, and more importantly, if it's unacceptable. Don't be worried if your belief system doesn't have a label. Whether it's your belief in God, and this is very, very important. Don't make people say, "Well, are you spiritual? Well, do you believe in a God?" Don't ask. I don't have to define. My belief doesn't have a name. My baloney has a first name. Don't worry about that. My politics doesn't have a name. Don't worry about that. I don't have a name for it. I don't have a name for a lot of things. How would you describe your clothes, your style? I don't know. How would you describe your favorite music? I don't know. I like a lot of stuff. I don't have a name for it. Also, live your life like you're blind. I mean this. I think how would you love people? How would you, when you see things, it throws you off. Immediately you're sizing people up, and you're blind people are able to, I'm not being sightless, must be horrible at times, but then again, maybe not. Because you don't know what fat is and ugly is, and words that we use, and black and white, and you might recognize tones of voice. Next, everyone's handicapped. Everyone's a genius. Next, you only take flack when you're over the target. That's not my line, but it's so true. Next, conspiracy theory is another word for true. Next, the only thing you will get in trouble with is the truth. That's the God's honest truth. Never a lie. It's the truth. Never lie unless you want to survive and prosper in the sick world. Worry more about your mental health than your, I don't know what I wrote, than your was. I didn't proofread this. I think I was just maybe dictating these. I'll work on this. Remember, one of these days, you're all going to be dead. None of this shit matters. If you can give your political ideology, you haven't thought it through yet. And always admit when someone's right. By the way, this is one of the best things in the world. Whenever you're talking to somebody, whenever you're listening to somebody, whenever you're arguing with somebody, find something that they've said, anything that's right, and say, you're right about that. It throws them right off. There always is something that somebody will say you agree with. There's always one thing. Find out what it is and stick to it. Also, lose the word crazy. Crazy is the worst word. It's a very ill word. It's a very sad word. And it really throws people off, and it dismisses. It's very dismissive of people. It's a bad word. I kind of like crazy. And I'm tired of being called crazy. I don't think people call me crazy, but whenever you have an idea, they say, that's crazy. That's crazy. Always make sure you know what the hell somebody's talking about before you dismiss them. I have a friend of mine who swears to God that we did not land on the moon. Give him 15 minutes to talk, and you'll agree with him. You'll say, I didn't even know that. So make sure you know what the hell you're talking about before you dismiss something. You know what I'm saying? Don't necessarily dismiss somebody. And also, proof is not the number of people who believe it. Proof of Christianity is not, well, look how many people there believe in it. What? Well, look how many people do bad things. Does that mean it's okay to do it? Numbers mean nothing. I hate that. When people say that, well, they can't be all wrong. Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can. They can be wrong, big time wrong. Big time. Also, I can't say this enough. I don't want to hear regret. Well, remember you remember the old story about the rational emotive therapy, the Ellis folks, RET, the intellectual group. His whole notion was scatology. He said people said I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done this, and I shouldn't have done this, and pretty soon you're shitting all over yourself. Do not waste any time with I should have done that. That was a stupid move. Stop it. Past. Stop. Past. I should have turned back there. God damn it. You know what? I should have turned back there. Watch, keep your eye on the road. I know, but I don't know how I missed that sign. Keep your focus here. Who cares? Don't worry about that. But if I should have, are you going to go back? No, I just want to keep talking about the mistake I made. I hate that. You made a mistake. Good. Move on. It's boring. We'll talk about this later. I don't care about that. What does that mean? Mistakes are great. Have you ever had a real holy shit, like just an epiphany moment that was so obvious where you've been doing something wrong and you thought, why was I doing it? I have them all the time. It's like, I didn't. And I love it. Instead of saying, why didn't I think that was simple? No, I missed it. I missed the point. I love trying to take this black box and shake it. It's the weirdest stuff. Let me ask you something. Well, I shouldn't say this. Well, you got to ask yourself, are you an analog or a digital person? Let me ask you something. Are you an analog or digital? That's not a stupid question. If you have a scale, do you want an analog? Remember the old days, you give the scale and it goes like this back, and then the thing lines up the little hair and it stops and you go, okay, that's it. All right, that's good. Versus digital, 178.3. Like, Jesus, 0.3. Would you let me alone? What do you like? Analog or better? Analog, I cannot do time unless I look at an analog. I can't, it means nothing to me. Right now it's 8:20:43. What the hell does that mean? I've got to go, oh, okay. I got to think of it. I got to think of the way, okay, I'm a pie chart guy. But if I have to do something and I say, okay, I got to do a video, it's going to be 20 minutes and I want it to go by fast, look at digital. Numbers go by, it flies by. But if I look at the clock, it's like, is that clock broken? It doesn't move. Analog or digital. Sometimes it's just a very, very weird thing. Here's one for you. Either you agree with me or not, and only people of our generation can understand this. True or false? You will never, ever, ever beat a great turntable and great speakers. Vinyl is the only way to go. There is nothing like the sound. I used to have like a Lynn Sondeck Jack Bose speakers in a room that was, you hear the stylus. There is nothing like vinyl. Analog. An analog, a stylus, the groove, nothing. The sound, the low end. Oh my God. Do you remember this? It's the most beautiful thing in the world. And then somebody came on and they said, hey, we have digital. It's a perfect thing. Well, yeah. It's good sometimes, but not for, yeah, but it's a perfect replica. Yeah, but it's a duplicate of something that may have been half. So it's a duplicate. So what? It's a clone. But then again, sometimes when you're in the old days, anybody's ever been at a radio station, you get the reel to reel, and the guy's got the blade, and you, I used to watch Johnny Donovan do tape, and all this jazz, and now I can see, I know just when they stop talking where it is, I can go back. It's great, but it doesn't sound the same. Telescope or microscope? Look at it do we look really closely or do you back up? Whatever this thing is. All I'm telling you is this. We live in a world where very few people are inhabiting it. When I heard Tucker and Joe talk, or Joe talks about, because I think he in particular, and Lex Friedman, to me, are what I've been waiting for the longest time. I'm thinking, I know that when something is smart, and it's smart, people will gravitate to it because people are smarter than you think. I knew it, and they proved it. I'm telling you, Joe talked for 3 hours about soil erosion or something. It doesn't matter, because he found it interesting. Pastafarian priest says, legendary Hollywood gossip reporter Hedda Hopper said, hypocrisy is the tribute vice must pay to virtue. I like that. I love that. Hypocrisy is the tribute vice must pay to virtue. Oh, I could just sit and dissect that one. Thank you for that. It's a wonderful time. Understand also, when you do not believe in something, you're not disputing it as being untrue. If I said to you, do you believe in Judaism? If you're not a Jew, you'll say no. Oh, so what? Is it bullshit? Is that what you're saying? You're anti-Semite? No. You ask me, do I believe it? And I say no. That's like saying, are you in love with my wife? No. Oh. So what? So am I crazy? Is that it? No. Not believing in something doesn't mean you're denying its existence. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means I don't care. I guess I can see what you think. I don't know. But I don't know the first thing about it. I never understood this. Well, can I explain it to you? You can explain it all you want. Well, let me explain Judaism. Okay, you can explain it. And by the way, we got a Muslim over here. Well, let me explain mine. You don't understand it. I'm telling you right now, you can explain it all day long. I'm not going to believe it. Why? I just don't. Let me read it again. You can read it all you want. Stop reading it. I don't want you to read it. It's not a matter of reading it. I just don't. I'm telling you. I'm not from that part of the. I don't know what the hell you're. I'm sure it makes a lot of sense to you, but I don't. So are you an atheist? I'm not an atheist. I just don't. I don't. You understand this? The one thing that's so interesting right now, you're missing a couple of things here. The Israeli Palestinian Gaza story is beyond fascinating. Like nothing you can imagine, at levels I can't even explain to you. I'm hearing things that I can't believe. I'm hearing people say that at Columbia University, you can't say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, or whatever it is. That's anti-Semitic, and you can't say that at a college campus. You can't say that. You can't say that. If you say that, you're out. You can't. Can't. But you can walk 100 feet, go on the sidewalk, and say it, and people over there will walk by you and say, keep going. This is New York. What the hell do I care? Step 100 feet in, and you're hateful. You're scaring people. You can do the same thing. You could say, from the river to the sea, Israel will be free. Now, wait a minute. Hold it. Well, that's okay. Wait a minute. Now you're. What is this? What do you mean you can't say this? You can't. It makes him feel bad. Well, so what? What do you mean, so what? So what? Am I missing something here? You feel bad? Okay. I'm sorry. So what? I feel bad. And I feel bad. Anybody care about what I feel bad about? No, you don't care about Don't threaten somebody. Don't threaten somebody. I mean, threaten using the Brandenburg test. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I wish one of these, and when this one congressperson said the infantata, I between that and emblazoned, and that poor guy in them, oh my, that poor guy on Fox News. I heard a Tiffany Henyard. I said, I can't do it. They're going to say I'm a racist just by playing it. I'm going to say, and they're going to say, I know it is so bad. It is so bad. You're thinking, how can somebody like this? She's the mayor, but you can't say anything. So I realized, okay, I got my private channel. I can say it. I can say on my private channel, but I can't. Okay, LionelMedia.com. I can say it. Oh, I do because I can't believe it. How does somebody say infitata? Is it wrong for me to want to speak correctly? No. No. And if I get it wrong, I learn. We live in a country where you cannot say it. I can't believe what I'm hearing. And I wish somebody would lean across that Elise Stefanik, lean towards you and say, let me say this one more time and listen good. And don't interrupt me and don't tell me you don't have a lot of time. I'm going to answer your question. Is this anti-Semitic? I don't know. I don't care. Is this racist? I don't know. I don't care. Say it if you want. This is New York City. You can walk on the 100 feet away and hear this guy's been screaming F you this, and yet all of a sudden your little ears are going to be. And I can't believe how you all of a sudden were screaming at the Greta Thunbergs and screaming at the climate folks and screaming because they had little microaggressions and trigger words. And now you're doing it. And the reason why you're doing it is because you are benefiting politically from this. You're benefiting. This is your big, you're not doing a goddamn thing for the rest of us. You haven't done anything to make my world better, but you're going to have another college president on your belt. You're going to pull a Claudine Gay. I can't believe what I'm saying. Go ahead and say anything you want. Don't threaten people. Okay? Now, it can get real dicey sometimes. If you yell, everybody with blonde hair should die, no, we're talking something. We're not saying that. So don't tell me that, yes, words can be threatening. But if somebody said, from the river to the sea, you can't blame me, you is better than me, and what the hell does that mean? I know what that means. No, what does that mean? I think you know what that means. I can't believe I live in this country. Do I agree with it? No. Do I understand it? I don't have any feeling whatsoever. Say what you want. This is America. I think. Say it. I hear crap all the time. Black Lives Matter. They didn't care about this. Do you remember Emma Solkowicz, whatever? The mattress girl? You didn't. Columbia didn't give a goddamn about her. About what she did to this poor guy who basically they made his life a living hell. And when I'm not going to go through that again. They don't get George Floyd, BLM. This one's a racist. This one. Remember during that? Remember when Nancy Pelosi, they were getting on their knees and Jerry Nadler couldn't get on his knees? They're wearing the kente cloth. That was such bullshit. I was so embarrassed for my country. It's like, are you kidding me? But if that's what you want to do, it's a free country. You lost my vote. And how we lionized that George Floyd, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. He's a thug. He probably died of fentanyl. But it's a free country. And if you want to put his image or visage on the side of a wall and you want to call him a saint, that's fine. But the moment you break a window, the moment you set something on fire, the moment you get Antifa behind you, the bullshit. Nobody cared about that. I don't care what you have to say. Let me say this again. So what? Say it. I don't care what it is. Say it. Have you ever heard just the stuff you hear? You know what I'm not hearing anymore? I don't hear cars with boom boxes. Very rarely. You notice that? Maybe it's you. I'm not hearing it. But this boom, boom, bop, and the motherfucker, I was like, what in the world? I mean, it's just like, this is the worst, filthy, whatever. Nobody cared about that. Kids listening, people pushing their kids. Hi, mommy. Can we go to that motherfucker? That's life. You got to hear these things. That's the best way to be. It's only words. Don't worry about it. I got some good words for you. You want to go to a Shakespeare? I got some good words there. But oh, no, no, no. I can't believe. So where do I fit in? I don't know. And the left and the right have absolutely no they don't know what the hell's going on. So all I'm saying to you, my dear friends, is simply this. Your government sucks. All of them. Left and right, Democrats and Republicans, they're not worth a damn. Ron Paul might have been. I love the way they made a big deal. Oh, Teddy Kennedy. What a bullshitter this guy was. He was the worst. And they said, oh, the lion of the Senate. Would you shut up? The same thing with all those Kennedys. And look at Bobby Kennedy with his I mean, he hits a few. He gets a few out of the few. I like what he said about he's backed off so much. And where's Shmuley Boteach? Where's he? How come he's toned down his very vigorous? Remember he was very pro-Israel, and now he's like, well, listen, if you say it, you got a right to say it. Stick to it. Don't change your mind. Not on my account. Stick to it. Say what you want. How do I tell people? I say, where's Sean Penn? Zigzag says, where's Sean Penn? Where's Oprah? Oh, by the way, you know what's coming up? Our man Cat Williams is going to be on Netflix coming up. Can't wait for that. Okay. All right, my friends, this has been a very, very fascinating time tonight. Learned about MKUltra. Isn't that terrific? Isn't that fun? And by the way, I've got a brand new video up for MKUltra, because people, they just love to think all of a sudden there's something about MKUltra. It is, there we go. Let me see. Hang on. Let me give you this one. Make sure you subscribe. You got to subscribe, because you got to subscribe. Because if you don't subscribe, you don't get these things. Here we go. There we go. That's it. All right, dear friends. About an hour and a half with you. I thank you for that. What a night it's been. So, Pastafarian priest. Remember the Pastafarian, the guy who wore the colander and he put it on his driver's license? I love that. Pastafarian priest, thank you. Sparky, thank you. Mr. Mike, thank you. R. Valera, thank you so much. Shelby Eaton Lipschitz. Johnny McGuire couldn't get higher. It's 0707. And Thomas Pilgreen. Thank all of yous, wonderful and incredible people, for your kindness and your love and your beauty and your vivacity and your intellectual curiosity. I thank you immensely for that. Now, what we need to do, let me also remind you, please follow Mrs. L at Lynn's Warriors. Lynn's Warriors. Lynn's Warriors. You got me? And also, find out if you really want to know what we're doing, because next week we're going to be in Muttontown, New York. What am I saying? Isn't that a great name? Muttontown. I love that name. Right there on Long Island. Do yourself a favor and follow her at Lynn's Warriors on X or Twitter, whatever it's called this week. Because that's where you know about her various goings on. She works. She just got off the phone now. She's working constantly to try to protect kids. And that is a daunting process. And also, dear friends, don't forget to follow me at Lionel Legal. That's the other channel for me. All right. Thank you all. Until tomorrow, I say to you, have a great and glorious evening. Thanks so much for being with us. And don't forget, until then, remember these final words, this valedictory, this adios, this sayonara, the monkey's dead. The show's over, Suya. Ta-ta.